I'm Father Patrick Briscoe.
And I'm Father Gregory Pine.
Welcome to Godsplaining. Thanks to all who support us. If you enjoy our podcast, please consider making a monthly donation to us on Patreon. Be sure to like and subscribe to Godsplaining wherever you listen to your podcast. Friends, today I reached out to Father Gregory and I said, we should do an episode about this. Why? Because I received in my email notification that his long-awaited book about the Eucharist has come out. So this episode is a celebration of Father Gregory's newest book, Your Eucharistic Identity, a Sacramental Guide to the Fullness of Life. Father Gregory, welcome to Godsplaining.
Hey, thanks so much. I've always wanted to be on the show, so it's a real delight to join you.
Long-time listener.
Long-time listener. Yeah.
I think that one of the great things about talking about what we're doing is that it affords us the opportunity to talk about what we're doing.
Nice.
Because you sit in that office and you just do things all day, and I have no idea what happens in there.
No one
does. It's like monkeys and Shakespeare, man. You know, it's just like we're letting them crank, and eventually evolution's going to happen, and everybody's going to rejoice in glory.
Yeah.
So when I say, hey, let's do an episode, what I really mean is I want to know what you're up to, Brosy. And
that's right.
I want to talk about it.
I was thinking about like we catch up on some things. You know, I think there's a tendency to like fragment the self or to speak of the self in terms of the various roles that you play. And when we do that, then it's easy to like catch up on the stuff that you do hither and thither, because both of us travel a decent bit. You travel more than I do. And so it's like, where have you been recently? Like, who have you preached to? Who have you taught? And this, that, and the other thing. But like we both spend a lot of time alone writing.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, how are you going to catch up on that? It's like, hey, how was the desiccating solitude of your cell? Was that nice for you? Was it different nice or the same nice? You know, it's like...
I had an editor check in on me after submitting a manuscript, and she wanted to set up a Zoom call to talk about it, and I said, "Oh no, are you refusing it?" I was so worried that it didn't meet her standards, and she said, "No, I just want to talk about it and make a plan for going forward." And I said, "Oh, really? Like I'm not used to being supported or like complimented."
Yeah,
it was a pretty amazing thing. Yeah, a little shock.
That it is interesting too. Like from the desiccating solitude of one's cell, you can get kind of defensive about your time, you know, because you got all your deadlines and you're trying to meet them, and people are like, knock, knock, knock. Would you like to engage in an activity which pertains, broadly speaking, to normal life? And you're like, no, I can't.
Can this meeting be an email?
Yeah, exactly. Can you hold the meeting with yourself and send me an AI summary of the conversation?
That's what I'm talking about. That's who I am. Okay. We've discovered it. The secrets to my identity revealed.
That's it. That's your Eucharistic identity right there.
Here for all of our listeners to understand. So one of the great joys of life, and I really mean this as a Dominican, has been going around preaching for the Eucharistic revival these past few years, and I didn't expect that. I didn't think that I would ever participate in a movement like this in the U.S. Church, that I would go to as many far-flung places I've gone, or that I would be as well received as I was in those places.
Yeah.
Not because I think I'm important or anything like that, but that in so many places people cared about the Eucharistic revival. It was an extraordinary thing. And all kinds of things were written about the Blessed Sacrament in that time and in that period. I did a little devotional for our Sunday Visitor about the Eucharist, and many other things were produced. And it turns out that this latest wave of Eucharistic books is just part of a centuries-long tradition in the life of the Church, because even before there were Dominican friars facing the long loneliness in our cells with our laptops writing things, there were other people writing books about the Eucharist. So Father Gregory, what I want to know, your book on your Eucharistic identity, how is it different from other books about the Blessed Sacrament?
Yeah. So there are more subordinated clauses. I find that there at the heart of the Church, I will subordinate clauses as kind of a clarion call of Gregorian prose. No, I mean, it's the type of thing where I would say this is true of both of our preaching and teaching style. The first movement is to build a bridge to the experience of the reader. And then the second movement is to kind of usher across that bridge or accompany across that bridge the Lord and Catholic teaching in life, like Catholic teaching in practice, and then accompany the reader back across that bridge into the Christian community. I've never put it in those terms, but something like that. So like a lot of people experience life in, they experience its difficulties of one sort or another. And sometimes there are temptations which crop up in the midst of those experiences where it's like, I'm alone, or there is no way for this to improve, or stinkitude, comprehensive stinkitude, no further thoughts. So then the hope here is, like, a lot of people are asking questions at present about identity. And those questions can be really difficult to parse. And I think people feel confused, confounded, lonely, sad, angry, mixed up, jumbled, whatever, in the midst of that. And so the hope with this book is to kind of build a bridge to the 21st century reader's questions about identity. And that doesn't necessarily mean of like sexuality or gender per se, but more so broadly speaking, I think a lot of us have been deprived in one way or another of the ordinary resources for sorting ourselves. Not to say like way back when it was easy, but in the sense that like now, a lot of our identity is constructed, or at least a lot of our contemporaries construct their identity, and we feel a kind of pressure to be like, "Ooh, how am I me? You know, how am I distinct? How am I different? How am I great? How am I excellent?" And there's a kind of pressure that comes with that. And so a lot of us find ourselves in the situation where we're like, "Ooh, I'm not that cool. I'm not that smart. I'm not that attractive, and I'm not that good at answering this question." So I think it's like we begin by addressing some of that concern, and then proposing the Eucharist basically as the worshipful object, not of identity politics, but as the worshipful object of all human hearts, in which exchange we come to discover who we are and what we're for, as we come to discover who God is and what he does in our life.
One of the things that is most remarkable to me is the joy in worship that this younger generation, Gen Z, has taken, right? This is being noted in all different kind of forms. And you and I saw this when we knelt in adoration with 1 million young people at Torture Vergata. Oh, sorry, Tor Vergata. I always slip a little bit. As we knelt there, praying with them and praying very sincerely, very heartfelt. The silence over that group of people, that crowd of young people, was really astonishing. And there's all kinds of interesting data about this, right? Like that Britons, meaning the English, between the ages of 18 and 24, their mass attendance in recent years has grown from 4% to 16%.
Dang, bro.
That's astonishing.
That is astonishing.
And in that, Catholicism within that bracket, Catholicism far outpaces Anglicanism.
Yeah.
And I think there's something about the fundamental understanding of Catholic worship that Catholicism is relational, not transactional.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if you could say something about that reality, about that claim, and the heart of your book, which is about finding identity in relation rather than transaction.
Sure, yeah. No, St. Augustine has this classic distinction between use and enjoyment. And he says it's proper to use means and it's proper to enjoy ends. But if we end up using ends, we do violence to them and to ourselves. That might sound obscure, but the basic idea is like, you can use all manner of things, but you probably shouldn't use people. Specifically, you shouldn't use God. Because what would you use God for? It's like, oh, well, like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to join religious life. We're going to be ordained priests. So that way we can leverage our social status as a way by which to get season tickets to the Minnesota Wild hockey team. It's like, bro, just like get tickets to the Minnesota Wild, Don't use God. That's so weird. So the idea is, on account of the fact that God is creator and end, that he is holiest in the heights, it doesn't make any sense to use him for anything further, because he can't be used for anything further, because there isn't anything further. So with this disposition, we come before the Lord and say like, hey, you're God. And I know you care about me, or so it has been revealed and mediated. And so I'd like to ask you for some things. But like, I'm not going to reduce our relationship to just asking for things. Like, I'm not going to come to the Eucharistic liturgy and say like, all right, here I am. So, number one, give me grace, virtue, gifts of the Holy Spirit. Number two, clarify who I am and what I'm for. And number three, I'd also like to be attractive, successful, and married with 9 kids. It's just like it doesn't work that way.
You had
There's a
me
sense in
until
which we.
that like very last thing, and then it was like, no.
Oh yeah.
So,
I
yeah,
was just thinking
celibate
of
religious.
the casual auditor.
Okay, good. Yeah, so not me.
Yeah. No, my list. Actually, I had like a list of goals at the age of 14, which included those things. Before I got excited about the prospect of religious life in the priesthood, it was like get straight A's. They were very ambitious. It was get straight A's, go to a college that I didn't in fact attend, marry an individual whom I did not marry, have a lot of kids which I have not had, and then go to heaven. So, holding out hope for goal number 5.
Turns out that's the only one that matters, baby.
Attaway. Okay, so we enter into Eucharistic worship with the understanding that, like, hey, God cares about us. He loves us. And so he's not necessarily going to make our lives easy, but he can make our lives somewhat simple. But we go to him for him, and that's enough, okay? So, like, the point of this book isn't so much like get more out of Mass, because get out of Mass isn't necessarily the spirit with which we want to approach Eucharistic worship. I think the spirit with which we want to approach Eucharistic worship is like, look how good God is. Look how wonderful, beautiful God is. And in that gaze by which we are transfixed, we can come to discover by way of overflow or by way of, kind of excess, that our own identity and our own mission in this world is thereby clarified.
How is that project not fundamentalism? because and what I mean by this is, I think the casual Catholic could see this proposal, could hear this proposal, they're listening to you, and say, well, so you're saying I should make my whole life about the 1 hour I spend going to Sunday Mass. Walk me through what that would really mean. Is that really correct? Because I could imagine a lot of people getting very frustrated by that. You get a priest you can't understand, the homily's garbage, your kids are so loud, you don't get anything out of the Mass. I mean, on the one hand, it's very exalted to say that we were made for this kind of worship, and this is the horizon of our life and the goal that's going to give us meaning. And the reality that we experience is often so devastatingly far from that.
Yeah.
So how is it that claim is not reductive of our experience?
I would like to add to your list of lamentations the fact that certain individuals, usually those 6 feet 2 inches and taller, experience an acute suffering that when they go to kneel, they are met with various elements of the pew behind them. So they actually have to lower the kneeler in the pew behind them in order to accommodate their long limbs. One of the comments that I receive most frequently when meeting people in real life is, wow, you're taller than I thought you were. So
yes, I can attest to that, because I hear people say that to you all the time. It actually brings me great joy.
It's awesome. At least they don't ask me if I play basketball, which is the ordinary response.
Right.
But I am 6 feet 3 inches and change, something like that, on my way towards 6'4". So this is tough. Okay, I'm just joking. But moving on, that's a great question. So a lot of folks go to Mass on Sundays, and that'd be 1 hour of their 168 hours per week. And then the question is, how does this constitute an orientation for the whole of life? My basic response is, and this is like the point of chapters 1 and 2, the basic point is that we are for God, and that God gives us himself to facilitate that assimilation or conformity. So we've heard it said, you're made to the image and likeness of God. In the Christian tradition, we typically understand that to mean like you have a capacity for knowing and loving, which you can exercise towards God, in God, and come in time to know God with his own love of himself, love God with his own love of himself, with greater or higher degrees of perfection, such that you attain to the very life of the triune God himself. And that our Lord Jesus Christ marks out this path for us, that he assumed our flesh so as to, as it were, take us with him unto God. The liturgy is the kind of extension of that incarnate logic unto Trinitarian communion. When St. Thomas describes the sacred liturgy, he refers to it as a manu duxio, which is like a leading by the hand. In effect, the liturgy gives us something to hold on to such that we can be conducted by Christ unto God. who is himself God. And so when we talk about like a Eucharistic identity, we're talking not just about 1 hour, but 1 hour which bleeds into, or 1 hour which kind of casts its cruciform shadow back and forward over the whole of the week. So does that mean that we're like consciously thinking about Mass before, during, and after? Not necessarily, but the idea is that we're consciously thinking about God, here and there, and that we're habitually oriented to God throughout the whole course of our days, and that we're prepared to enter into the Eucharistic liturgy and to unpack the Eucharistic liturgy as part of our ordinary Christian existence. I think a lot of people think about, like your spiritual life is only good insofar as you can hold things in mind or hold things in heart. There's a sense in which that's true, but I think a lot of it is a matter of just kind of setting yourself up such that you're in living contact with God and his saving mysteries. And so that's kind of the point here, is to kind of conceive of your life and shape your life insofar as you can, such that it assumes these Eucharistic proportions. Because when it does, it makes more sense.
To continue in this direction, and this is the positive side, I guess you would say, of the question I was asking. What when you have the experience of a liturgy that changes you, I mean, something that's really glorious, right? And like I remember the first priestly ordination I went to, and it was in the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is a gloriously restored mid-19th century Gothic cathedral. It's just fantastic. It's the best of the Midwest. Germans came over here, they brought their wood carving, they built a glorious church, and we're still worshiping in it. Thanks be to God. So the liturgy was awesome. I remember being so taken in by that as a little boy. It was just glorious. And I still think of it, or I still think of our own ordination mass, singing the opening hymn. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Lauda Jerusalem. And I've just overcome. It's such a sweet savor. It's something that I really cling to. So I think we have that possibility of having experienced a liturgy that changes us. That is the point of the liturgy, is that it would change us. You open this up as using the language of the church, talking about divinization, which I think for some people, and certainly this was my own experience, the first time I heard that word, I was repulsed because I thought that's what Mormons believe, and I'm not a Mormon.
Sure.
So can you walk us through a little bit about how this bleeding over into life is really a glorious thing? It's not just the thing that sustains us, but it really transforms us, and the process that God is working out in us.
Yeah. We just kind of got back. Didn't just kind of get back. We did get back not too long ago from the Jubilee of Young People, as you mentioned. And, I was very moved by several of the liturgies that we attended. By several of the things that we experienced or did while there in Rome. And one thing that I was thinking
anytime the French sing, I was in major danger of tears. Okay, but go on. Sorry. You were thinking.
I was thinking, sometimes when you're in the midst of those experiences, it's not really clear why you're moved or why you're affected by it. It's like I'm thinking things, I'm feeling things, but I don't quite know the connections between my spirit and my body, or I don't quite know the connections between the inputs and the outputs. And that's okay. I don't think that we're responsible for knowing that, for having a hypersensitive or acute access into our own emotional and psychological states and all of their intricacies. But I think what we are responsible for is a certain docility to the church's teaching and a certain receptivity of the church's gifts, such that we kind of put ourselves in such a place as to profit from what the Lord mediates through his mystical body. And when we talk about divinization here, we're just talking about sharing in the life that he gives, right? So sharing in the life that he gives in his church. And so we talk about Christ as the head. We talk about ourselves as the members. So the idea here being that the same blood flows through his veins and ours, or the same kind of spirit animates, or soul animates us and him. And we're kind of dabbling in and amongst analogical and metaphorical language. But the basic idea is we're talking about an organic unity whereby we become like him. We don't cease to be human beings, but we become like God through the life of grace, virtue, gifts of the Holy Spirit, beatitudes, and fruits of the Spirit, which makes it such that we think his thoughts and feel his feelings, as it were. And the idea here is like various ways in which you can approach this. There's like a kind of hyper intellectual way where it's like, let me just tell you everything I know. And then there's like a kind of hyper emotional way where it's like, it doesn't matter too terribly much. Let's just chase those chord progressions which have the maximal impact on our emotions. And I don't want to do either, but I don't think you can leave spirit or body behind. What I propose in the book is attending to the signs in which the Lord himself institutes the sacrament. So it's clear it's a sacrament, and a sacrament is a sign of a sacred thing that makes men holy, says St. Thomas Aquinas. So it gives us grace precisely through signification. So it gives us grace in signifying. And I think sometimes, like because of polemics with Protestants, we've gotten in the habit of saying, like, if the Eucharist is just a symbol, well, then to the underworld with it, Well, just because it's not just a symbol doesn't mean that it isn't a symbol. It is a sign. And it's specifically a sign that conducts us to a gracious term. Now, mind you, we believe in the true presence or the real presence, namely that the first effect of the offering of the sacrifice of the Mass is that Christ dwells substantially on the altar. But he does so, sacramentally, that is to say, under the appearance of a sign. And so the proposal in this book is let's follow the principal signs and see where they lead us. Not like that you have to be a theologian to understand them, but that you just have to be an attentive Christian. And attentive takes into account the fact that, like, you got a bunch of kids, or takes account into the fact that you've had a UTI for the past 3.5 weeks, or it takes account into the fact that you have ADHD. It takes all these things on board. It just means, like, can we pay attention with the attention that we have, and can we direct our gaze with what little kind of resources we can commit to the task? So that's the basic idea.
All right, so I think that gives us a pretty good shape of the book. I have a proposal for you.
I'm ready.
I did not prep Father Gregory for this before the episode, so I'm asking him cold. How about we use a lightning round? Just give me 1 or 2 word answers to like 20 questions about the Eucharist.
Let's do it.
This will reveal more about you and get people more psyched to get your amazing book, which they should all get. Okay, ready?
Party on. I'm ready.
All right, here we go. What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone going to Eucharistic adoration for the first time?
Silence.
What's a book about the Eucharist besides yours that changed how you pray?
Lawrence Feingold's book called The Eucharist.
Favorite Eucharistic prayer in the Roman Missal?
1.
A time when the Eucharist gave you unexpected courage?
Good question. I celebrated Mass when I threw out my back, seated in a chair, kind of twisted up in a knot, and one of our brothers and my good friend, Father Bonaventure, served. And I was like, this is awesome. I love that I'm a Catholic. I love that I'm a priest. I love that he is here helping me celebrate Mass in an easy chair.
Amazing.
Sorry.
What's the most moving Eucharistic procession you've ever seen?
Oh, goshy. By testimony, the National Eucharistic Congress.
Which is your favorite adoration chapel anywhere in the world?
Oh, so it's a tie between the Portiuncula at Franciscan University of Steubenville and the Adoration Chapel down the hill at St. Peter's. 2 places, both formative.
How is your life as a priest different because of daily Mass?
I cry more.
Oh, Brovy. Yeah.
Yeah. But it so it structures the day in a different way.
What's your favorite line from a Eucharistic hymn?
Oh, gosh. Probably truth himself speaks truly, else there's nothing true.
What saint has helped you deepen your love for the Eucharist?
Sneaky little saints kind of here and there. St. Thomas Aquinas, who saw that coming? I've profited from, there's a little book that I read in college, long explanation, who cares? St. Gemma Galgani basically features in that one a good bit.
What's one gesture at Mass you wish more Catholics noticed?
Probably like the various prostrations which still exist and the various prostrations which are still allowed.
Nice. Good answer. I love that. What's your favorite Eucharistic miracle?
Ooh, so the only one that I've ever visited was Santarém, which is like in Portugal. I mispronounced it, but cool. I love that the Lord shows up in an especial way for bad priests and atheists.
Amen. And finally, if you could add a Eucharistic-related feast day to the calendar, what would it celebrate?
Ooh, Maybe just a feast of the blood. So you've got the feast of the body and the blood, break them apart, a feast of the body and a feast of the blood. The second reading from the Office of Readings would be St. Catherine just losing her little mind.
Nice. The
which would be
blood,
awesome.
the blood, and then she dies. Okay, perfect. Good. Father Gregory, this was a ton of fun. I loved hearing about your book and your
Party on.
responses. It was a great gift. Where can people find it?
In my hand.
There it is. Oh, gosh. Look at the book.
Ignatius Press did a beautiful job, as they always do. I just love these little flaps. Little flapperoo.
Yeah.
Little flapperoo.
No, because those are so
Sweet
good for
typeface.
for keeping your place.
They are, exactly. And the book is shorter than some other books, so it's the type of thing that you can finish in, 4.5 hours. So folks can find it where books are sold. So Ignatius Press has their own kind of outlets, and then Amazon, the Evil Empire itself, also has opportunities. But they have a pretty wide distribution, so it'll probably be in a Catholic bookstore, maybe even a non-Catholic bookstore near you.
Near you. Oh, that would be sweet. We'll put a link in the show notes. Father Gregory, thanks for taking the time today.
Father Patrick, thanks for suggesting it.
Friends, if you're tuning in for this episode of Godsplaining, we hope that you enjoyed it enough to like and subscribe. If not, you can leave a reason why below. We actually do read those. So if you have a compliment to give or a further question, please ask it of us. You can leave a comment there on the episode or write into us. All the information about our upcoming events and ways to contact us can be found on our website over at godsplaining.org. Also, there you can shop for our merch, and you can find out. I said what we're doing. Yeah, that's all true. It's
You
all
can
over
get
there.
a free humpback whale.
Nice.
Just kidding. Not
Thanks,
true.
Oprah. Thanks,
Yeah.
Oprah. Otherwise, follow us on social media. That helps people find us. Share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it. And most importantly, friends, we ask that you would pray for us. Please know that we're praying for you. God bless. Would Michael Scott subscribe to this YouTube channel?
Would Wayne Gretzky encourage him to do so?
Would St. Thomas Aquinas?
Yes, that's for darn sure. But Wayne Gretzky makes 100% of the shots that Michael Scott doesn't take, so it's hard to say. All I know is that you ought to subscribe.
Whether you're stuck in the office or on your way home from it, follow Godsplaining.
Blammo.